Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to start with something a little unusual, a confession. I'm not the kind of person who feels comfortable standing on a stage. In fact, I'm the kind of person who usually avoids being the center of attention at all costs. I'm more at ease in the back row, quietly observing, than up here, talking to you. And yet, here I am. Why? Because sometimes the very things that scare us the most are also the things that teach us the most. So that's why I've decided to panic later. And today, I want to share a little bit of my journey with you. Not because it's extraordinary, but because it's ordinary. Because it's the story of a student, an introvert, someone who often feels like they don't fit into the loud, confident mold the world seems to reward. I didn't always know that I was wired differently. I just knew I felt things more than others seemed to. I'd walk into school and feel the weight of the day before it even began. Not because something dramatic happened, but because I could sense the tension in the air, the tiredness in someone's eyes, the silence between two friends who used to laugh together. I used to think being quiet meant being invisible. I used to sit in class with answers in my head, but my hand would stay down. Not because I didn't know, but because I didn't want to be wrong, or worse, seen. I'd rehearse what I wanted to say in my mind over and over until the moment passed. And then I'd feel this ache, not because I missed a chance to speak, but because I missed a chance to be heard. And there were days when I'd come home with a lump in my throat and a storm in my chest, unsure where the sadness was coming from. Maybe it was the pressure to be perfect. Maybe it was the feeling of being too much and not enough at the same time. I'd sit at my desk trying to study, but my mind would wander. Not to distractions, but to questions. Why do people change? Why do friendships fade? Why does the world reward loudness when quiet people have so much to say? I used to wish I could switch it all off. The overthinking, the sensitivity, the constant wondering. Once I even tried. I remember telling myself one morning, today I'm going to be chill. I'm not going to overthink anything. By lunchtime, I'd already overthought the fact that I was trying not to overthink. So clearly, that went very well. And honestly, if overthinking were an Olympic sport, I'd have at least 3 gold medals by now, and still wonder if I deserve them. But now I started to see it a bit differently. My wiring isn't broken, it's just deep. It's the reason I remember the small details, like the exact words someone said when they comforted me, or the way the sky looked on a day I felt brave. Books have always been my escape, not because I hate reality, but because sometimes reality feels too sharp, too loud, too demanding. I remember one day I was completely overwhelmed. School, expectations, people. It was all too much. So I walked into a bookstore telling myself I'd stay for 5 minutes. 2 hours later, I was still there, surrounded by stories, by quiet, by the soft smell of paper and ink. And for the first time that week, I could finally breathe. And honestly, books don't judge. They don't ask, why are you so quiet? They don't just distract, they heal. They remind me that imagination is a kind of survival. That even when the world feels too heavy, there's always a page waiting to carry me somewhere softer. Sometimes wonder hides in detours, like that one family road trip where we took a wrong turn and everyone panicked. Ironically, the great GPS, true to its innate nature, was confused, and we ended up in the middle of nowhere. But then we stumbled upon this breathtaking view. Rolling hills, quiet air, golden light, it was perfect. It wasn't where we were supposed to end up, but it was exactly where we needed to be. And sometimes, the detour isn't a road, it's a moment. Like that one time me and my friends decided to bake Danish pastries. We were super excited. We even had a plan. We even made the dough, but halfway through we realized we didn't have the jam, which is the main ingredient for a Danish pastry. We stood there, looking at each other, confused, unsure of what to do, and someone said, "You know what? Leave it. Let's just make cinnamon rolls instead." It wasn't the plan. It wasn't even close. But we went with it. And somehow, those cinnamon rolls turned out to be the best thing I've eaten in my life. We messed up, we laughed, we improvised, and it was perfect. Not because things went smoothly, but because they didn't. So maybe wonder doesn't always live in perfect plans. Maybe it lives in those moments where everything goes wrong and somehow still turns out right. Kind of like the sweetness in chaotic ventures. Now, for a long time, I thought having fewer friends meant I was missing something. I'd see people surrounded by large groups, noise, laughter, and I'd wonder if I was doing something wrong. But then I realized it's not about how many people surround you. It's about who stays when everything else fades. I have a small circle, tiny actually, but they're real. They're the kind of people who notice when I go quiet, who understand that my silence isn't emptiness, it's processing. They're the ones who remember the little things, like how I color code my notes, or the way I get way too excited about giving gifts. And when they open one and say, "Oh my God, you remember this?" That moment of being seen, truly seen, it's everything. That kind of friendship, the kind that sees you in your silence and still chooses you, that's the kind of wonder that makes you love yourself for the meticulous person that you are. Now, I've done things that look impressive, like winning the IIHM Young Chef India Junior Regional Final. But here's the truth. I didn't enter that competition because I wanted to win. I entered it because I wanted to see if my obsession with tiny details, like the swirl of icing or the exact placement of mint, could actually mean something. And when I won, I didn't cry because of the trophy or certificate. I cried because for once, my perfectionism wasn't a flaw. It was my strength. But for me, the achievements I value the most aren't the ones with big certificates or medals. They're the invisible ones, like raising my hand in class even though my heart is pounding, like walking into a room full of people without immediately looking for the exit. These moments don't get applause, but they changed me. Because being wired to wonder also means being wired to feel deeply, intensely, sometimes painfully. And every time I choose to show up anyway, that's a win. And right now, that's my new motto: anxious but still showing up. Now, if you'd met me a few years ago, you would have met a girl who tried to do everything. Every competition, every club, every project just to feel enough. But somewhere along the way, I realized that doing everything isn't the same as being everything. After a while, I slowed down. I started choosing quality over quantity. Fewer friends, fewer commitments, but more meaning. I learned that peace feels better than validation, and that growth doesn't always look like a trophy. Sometimes growth is invisible. It's saying no when you want to please everyone. It's trying again after failure. It's being kinder to others, and most of all, to yourself. So, no, I don't have it all figured out. I still overthink, I still panic, I still cry and then bake cookies to feel better. But I stopped trying to be someone else. I've started trusting my wiring, the curiosity, the imagination, the softness, the spark, because maybe being wired to wonder doesn't mean being perfect. It's about being real. It's about being brave enough to feel, to ask, to dream, even if it's messy. So if there's one thing I want you all to take away from my story, is this. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to matter. You don't need to have the biggest list of achievements to be proud of yourself. And you most certainly don't need to fit into somebody else's idea of confidence to belong. You are wired the way you are for a reason. And that wiring, the wonder, the questions, the struggles, the strengths, that's your power. Thank you.